Hello, welcome to the second video of my push-pull leg series. In the last video, I covered my typical push workout, and today I'll be covering my pull workout. So if you didn't watch the first one, I'd recommend doing that first. But today I'll be covering the basic exercises that I go through when I do a pull workout, which consists of all of the pulling muscles in your back, as well as your biceps, and pretty much nothing else. So let's get into it. After a quick warm-up on the pull-down machine, I like to start with pull-ups. They're a classic, you can't really go wrong with them, and I've been including them as a general overloading exercise in the beginning. And only in the beginning because I am not strong enough to do them after that. So when I do these, I don't like to just pump out as many as I can. I take them slow as I do most exercises, but make sure that you come down all the way. So as you notice, when I reach the bottom there, I let my scapula kind of loosen and get a real deep stretch on the lats. And even when I can't get a full rep, I try to get a few partials left in there. Really burn to failure because I only do a few sets of these. And I actually recorded both of them this time. And the only reason I only do 2 is because that's really all I can manage. If I were to do 3 or 4, they'd be very low rep sets. So I follow this by a few sets of pull downs just so I can get an even amount of vertical pulling movements and horizontal pulling movements, which really, that's all a pull day is. Those are your biggest factors. So when I do this next set of pull-ups, you might notice how I tuck my chin up at the top. That's just an old habit of mine. Don't really worry about that. The whole chin over the bar advice is pretty pointless. So if you can only get, say, eyebrows to hand level, if that's all you can manage, that's great. If you keep doing that, eventually you will be able to get what people consider a full pull-up. So don't let the inability to do a full prevent you from doing partials as a way to progress towards achieving the pull-up. Because although they might not provide the best stability, they're still a fantastic exercise to really load the entire back. Now, this next exercise is a narrow neutral grip lat pull down. So the first part of that doesn't really matter that much. All you should take away is that it is a pull down movement. The only reason that I do these with a narrow grip is because that the other exercises I do target other types of grips. The pull-ups I just did were more of a standard shoulder width grip, and I will do a wider grip exercise later in my workout. So feel free to switch those up. It's not that important. I just like to be able to make sure I'm covering all targets in all of my exercises. Now, this is definitely one of my favorite back movements, not just because the narrow grip makes me feel ridiculously strong, but because I feel like I can really push and connect to my lats really well. I feel like the neutral grip really allows me to focus on driving my elbows into my hips. And overall, that lets me feel a solid mind muscle connection to my lats. Now, I only did 2 of those to make a total of 4 vertical pulling sets so that I could match it up with what I'm going to do with the machine rows. Any kind of horizontal pulling or rowing will be fine. This is just the exercise I'm using right now. Now, I really like the chest support on here because it lets you really take the target muscle to failure and not worry about any sort of stability like an exercise like pull-ups. I try not to let myself go too heavy on these so that I can get a great squeeze at the top of the contraction. And while the contraction is not as important as a full stretch for muscle growth, I still think it's necessary to include so that you can really connect with your target muscles. Now, what are your target muscles, you might say? In an exercise like this, I'm really trying to feel my upper back. I want to feel a squeeze up high in my traps, my rear delts, and I take these to a crazy failure because the stability of the exercise allows me to do so. Hopefully this angle is a little bit better at showing the direction that I want to pull and what muscles I want to activate. So I'm really thinking about getting my upper back active in this movement. And if you need to lighten the load, that's not a bad thing. With most machines, I use nearly the full stack, but with this one right here, I'm only using about half. And even though it is lighter weight, my back gets more sore from a movement like this than anything else. And I would definitely recommend in any exercise to try doing a weight that you think is too light for you, just so you can get that perfect mind muscle connection, and it might actually do better for you in the long run. A lot of the machines in my gym don't go terribly heavy. Like most of the machines, I can handle nearly the full stack because it's not a hardcore gym. It's more just a wellness center. So sometimes my ego might get in the way and I want to throw on the full stack, even though I can't quite handle it. So if your gym is the same way, don't let your ego get in the way and really use a weight that you know you can handle. At this point, my back is totally done, so I'm moving on to biceps. And although your biceps do get a lot of work when you do pull down and rowing movements, they still need their own individual isolation. So to start with that, I like to do preacher curls. I do these because they're fantastic at loading the stretch, and they provide a lot of stability because your elbows and your armpits are all tucked into the equipment. When my bicep is fully stretched at the bottom, all the weight is almost totally perpendicular to the ground, so to gravity. So you get a lot of the tension down there, and you don't get a lot of tension at the full contraction. So it's pretty close to optimal in terms of muscle growth. And honestly, I'd recommend recording yourself while doing these because I don't know if you can see it here, but it might just be me. It might just be placebo. But it looks like my right forearm versus my left is more vertical at the top, while my left is more slanted. So that could be a little form error that I just don't notice. But since then, since seeing this video, I've tried to correct that, tried to make sure my arms are as parallel, as symmetrical as possible, and I think it's working better. I've actually gone up a little bit in strength, so that might be the cause. Now, after doing 4 sets of these, I move on to a rather peculiar exercise. I would call it the decline curl because you're laying decline on a bench while you curl. Although Mike Isertel, one of my favorite science-based YouTubers, calls it the clown curl because you kind of look like a clown doing them. But even though they look a little silly, they're actually one of the most scientifically sound curls you can perform. Because like the preacher curl, they have a similar resistance profile, as in your arms are totally perpendicular to the ground when the biceps are at full stretch and you're not having a lot of tension at the full contraction. So it does load the stretch just as well, while in this exercise there is more stretch than in a preacher curl because the long head of the bicep actually connects to the shoulder joint. And while the shoulder is extended or flexed, whatever term you'd want to use, it is stretching the bicep even more than you would get in a preacher curl. So when I do these, typically I use an ab bench where you can tuck your legs in and you can set it to an extreme decline. But that was being used during that day, so I had to compromise. I used a regular bench, put it on an incline, and just lay backwards on it. The footing was a little awkward. You might notice I kind of shifted my feet a little bit, but it didn't really affect the set too much, and I'm going to insane failure right here with a slow and controlled eccentric as always. I'll put the workout in the description. Feel free to mix and match it as you like, and let me know how it goes for you. Subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video.